Hi folks, I'm smoking my Eagle pipe and in it I've got some black twist. Someone pointed out to me recently that I'm at 940 odd subscribers, which made me think that I should begin to think about what happens when I get to 1,000. What kind of giveaway am I going to provide for 1,000? When I first joined the pipe community, doesn't seem that long ago, I never ever thought that I would get many followers at all. And the idea of having 1,000 followers seems quite frightening. And I know I haven't yet, and neither am I bragging about that or anything like that, or begging for more followers. But if I do get 1,000, I've got some things in mind to give away. There are some pipe racks that I no longer use that I thought might make excellent giveaway gifts, as well as some tobacco. But just by way of preparation, I suppose, by way of an early warning, that if I ever do reach 1,000, there'll be some things coming along as a giveaway, and I'll try and arrange that giveaway to be as easy as possible for both producers and non-producers to enter. I thought I'd read you a poem that I wrote when I was on a wild man's weekend run by a Franciscan monk called Richard Rohr. If ever you get a chance to go on any of his weekends, I suggest you do. They're well worth it. But anyway, this is what occurred to me. The sun beats down on the sacred circle, and the boy becomes a man. In the heat, the day, nature, and God become one. And the boy sees clearly, for the first time, his part in the mystery of being. The blood of his wounds still fresh, the pain becomes an offering and a doorway to life. Today is a good day to do great things, my son. When you were born, the world rejoiced and you cried. Live your life so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. The fathers of the past, present and future become one, and the boy sees the truth. He is a man, and he takes his place in the sacred rituals of his people. Today is a good day to do great things. It was a poem that came to me during that retreat, and I thought very much of it as my initiation, even though I was in my 50s. And that poem, in a way, expresses some of my own feelings about what occurred on that weekend. Sorry, I'm going to try and light my pipe again. I think each of us is called to, in some way, go through an initiation. Of course, I was baptized when I was little, but I didn't know anything about that. And I needed something that was more fitting to a man. The problem with baptism is we're dressed in a white dress, usually, and we're brought before the baptismal font, and we have drops of water sprinkled on our face or on our head, and we're signed with a small sign of the cross. But that's not really the kind of initiation that men need. We need initiations that have taken place throughout history. We need an initiation into manhood, and that's what I believe is wrong with so many young men today. They have no males who can guide them with the right attitudes to life. They have no challenge of the right kind of initiation. That kind of initiation that's costly. In some tribes, when a young man becomes of age of initiation, his uncle or some other male, not his father, will come to his home and drag him out and drag him into the forest, to the place where the men meet. It's a time of fear in many ways, wondering what's going to happen. What are they going to do to me? And in this particular tribe, the older men of the tribe cut their arms underneath here so that blood drips down, and the young men are to walk underneath it, so they are sprinkled with the blood of the older men. And they see that these men have given something. They've suffered some pain. It's some cost that these younger men should enter into their fellowship. It's not necessarily the young man who's having to pay the cost. It's some of the older men. And of course, there's usually some kind of marking, be it circumcision or tribal scars. Well, modern man has many scars in his life because of the things that happen, because of the things that influence him. And we need some way to acknowledge those scars, to rid them of the hurt and the pain and the destructive nature of them, so that they might become something positive, so that they might point to lessons learned, to strengths gained, to wisdom growing. And that's why I wrote that poem, because I really felt that during that period of initiation, I entered in some way, to something that had gone on between a male society for time immemorial. At that time, I still believed in God. And so at the end of the weekend, we built an altar made of wood, of logs. We dressed it with branches of different trees. We provided a vessel for wine and a plate for salt, again, not silver, not gold, but made out of wood, so that we might become one in our communion with nature, with God, and with the universe. Even though I no longer believe in God, I believe each one of us is called to become one with nature, with the universe, and with life. Now, I'm sorry if there are many of our lady members who think, what about us? But I genuinely believe that you too should have your own forms of rites of passage. And I guess you have. In tribal religions, they were kept private. Things like the great cycles of life, of menstruation, was seen as a moving on. And I'm not going to go any further into what should be a woman's initiation, because I'm a man. I may not always appear so, I may appear a fool. But even though in here I still feel too young, too imperfect, too weak, too foolish, I know that on at least one day I became a man amongst my brothers and was recognized as such. And I look back on that time for strength in times of darkness. Well, I suppose that's enough of my usual preaching. I don't mean it to be like that. But I guess I'll never change. So I'm wondering whether there's some bit of silliness I can end with. I might have told you this before, and if so, I'm really sorry. But it still tickles my fancy. There was a man stood at the side of the road, waiting for his wife to come out of the beauty parlour. He'd given her money so she could have her face done and her nails done and her hair done and all that kind of thing. And as he was stood there, this lady of the street came up to him and said, "Would you like a good time, love?" And he said, "I'm sorry, I've only got $10. And she said, "You're not going to get much for $10. And she stormed off. And about 5 minutes later, his wife came out after her beauty treatment, looking all spectacular and feeling wonderful. And as the man walked down the street arm in arm, the girl from a doorway said, "See, I told you you'd not get much for $10 round here." Good night. Sleep well.